This month on Hunt Camp Mail.
But it's a real ripper for koala-sized game, in my opinion. Be mindful that you're spending thousands of dollars on a piece of crap. Hey, wake up! I might even give myself the bullshit button. And I'll gladly be there to piss on the ashes.
Yeah, I'm from Saskatchewan.
The ammo industry, including federal, has no soul. Welcome to the August 2024 edition of Hunt Camp Mail. I hope you enjoyed my watered down version of Reloading Month. It was really hard to have a reloading month when YouTube won't let me post videos that demonstrate how to make ammunition, but I did my best. Yes, I do have a broken and severely cut finger right now, due to my hand being slammed in a car door during a recent off-road trip. I actually almost lost the tip of my finger, but they were able to save it. Most of the country right now is getting ready for the dove opener, which I'm also getting ready for. I know, it's going to be a little bit more challenging this year with this finger issue, but I'll get it figured out. I just can't wait to have one last pool party this summer with dove poppers and dove tacos out on the grill. But just be careful this year because it's going to be really crowded out there because, the dove opener happens during Labor Day weekend this year. Next month, I'm going to do a 50th episode Hunt Camp Mail special. And please watch the end of this video so I can give you more details on that. And it will include a fan trivia giveaway type thing as well at the end of it. So with all of my ramblings out of the way, let's get to this month's mail. And our first letter for August of 2024 is from Joshua in Washington. Joshua wrote, "Inspired by one of your previous videos on hunting with vintage gear, I set out on opening day of bear season with a Model 94 lever action rifle chambered in .375 Winchester that I dusted off from the back of my safe. I went out with no scope, no rangefinder, and no camo. I wore all wool and leather boots. After blowing a fawn in distress call for about 10 minutes, I spotted a bear standing on its hindquarters approximately 500 yards away with my naked eye. If I had a 300 Win Mag, I would have been tempted to take the shot. I put my odds against the animal as you preach, and I was amazed at how close I can get using just an intuitive sense of wind, sight, and noise management. I ultimately harvested this nice boar at about 20 yards away, and oh my, it was such an experience that long-range hunting will never produce. I was close enough to hear him smash through the brush, grunt, and growl, and I was able to take a very ethical, well-placed shot. This experience, along with watching your videos, has truly shaped how I view my gear, tactics, and perspective on future hunts, allowing me to see hunting through a different lens. I now view it more as a tradition rather than just something we do. I wanted to share my experience with you and your fans. Perhaps it will inspire someone else to try out a hunt like this." And here's a picture of the bear that Josh shot. If you take a look at the Boone and Crockett Club's 5 stages of being a hunter, I'd say that you're at stage number 4 right now, known as the method stage. In this stage, a hunter kind of morphs into a mentality of how the animal is taken rather than what animal is taken or I must fill a tag. Most hunters never get to stage 4 or they refuse to get to that stage. So congratulations on your development as a hunter. And your bear hunt is something that you'll probably never forget, especially doing it with an old Model 94 and 375 Winchester. I mean, what an awesome hunt. Stalking within 20 yards of a black bear is an achievement in its own right. 99.9% of hunters out there can never get that close without bait, dogs, a stand, or some kind of blind. And you closed from 500 yards to 20 yards on foot in unknown terrain. And kudos to you, sir. I'm not easily impressed, but your hunt was impressive. And our next letter for this month is from Chris in Florida. Chris wrote, I've always wanted to do a long-range tuna trip, and I got a reservation and laid down a deposit for a 16-day trip on the Red Rooster 3 for March 2nd through the 18th. I'm debating about whether to use one of the local fish cleaning vacuum sealing outfits. They recommend 5-star. These processors are focused on getting shit done, and they don't care if the meat goes in the garbage. I'm driving my GMC Sierra 2500 HD over with plenty of Yeti coolers. Do you happen to know if the public boat ramp on Shelter Island has a fish cleaning table? Am I being foolish by not using 5-star? Well, first of all, I've been on the Red Rooster 3 several times, and I think it's a great boat with a great crew, and you'll definitely catch lots of fish. Captain Andy, if he's still running that boat, is just top notch also. But you'll be targeting cows on that trip, so I really hope you're well prepared for it before you go. Some local people that live in the San Diego area will take home their whole tunas and process it at home, but you really can't do that because you live in Florida. And it's also illegal to fillet fish and dump parts in the bay. So that's out of the question also. And, also, you're not going to go to a local cleaning station at a park or a boat ramp and sit there and fillet 1,000 pounds of tuna. So that's also out of the question, in my opinion. And, this leaves a processor like 5-star is really your only viable option, but it's a good option, in my opinion. Trust me, the last thing you want to do after being out at sea for 17 days, and catching bait all night and reeling in fish all day, the last thing you want to do is fillet 1,000 pounds of tuna before you drive back across the country to your house. Keep only as much fish as you can handle, safely handle and take home. And, use 5-star at the dock. Like I always say on this channel, don't complicate simple things. And our next letter is from Andrew in Brunswick, Maine. Andrew wrote, have you done much hunting out on the East Coast? Well, Andrew, I've hunted every state in the West, much of the South, and most of the Midwest, but I've never hunted north of Georgia on the East Coast. And, I've also been to every U.S. state except for the New England states. But, I do hope to do some hunting and fly fishing there one day. For the exception of, some of the cities there, most of New England looks beautiful. So I'm definitely receptive to hunting and fishing there. And our next letter is from Mick from Australia. And Mick is basically my favorite bloke from Oz, and he's also the biggest wanker hater on this channel. And Mick wrote, the 17 caliber in rimfire and centerfire. Do you own any? And what are your thoughts on this pissant caliber? That's a very Mick-like question there, so you're going to get a Mick-like answer. It's definitely a pissant caliber for those boomers, but it's a real ripper for koala-sized game, in my opinion. Throw those little bastards on the Barbie. The 17s definitely won't impress an arced up bunyip, will it? You won't be bullyragging old Bunyip with the 17, mate. But they have about as much a chance of redemption on big game as old Raygun's dancing career over there in Oz. And our next letter is from Steve in Arkansas. And Steve didn't really send me a letter. He actually just sent me a picture. And Steve found a new use for that barrel cooler that I recommended in that video. Check this out. And our next letter is from Gavin from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Yeah, I'm from Saskatchewan. That's up in Canada, eh? You American ladies, you've been out to Saskatchewan, eh?
Gavin wrote, I started reflecting on what good hunting means to me, and I've landed on joy. I love taking up the challenge of learning a new rifle and developing a load in preparation for a hunt. The joy of developing a load, scouting a new hunting spot, and ethically harvesting a game animal all come to mind. However, my greatest good hunting moment was the joy I experienced when my daughter took her first deer. It doesn't get any better. If you haven't already done so, could you share what good hunting means to you and how that may have changed over the years? And here's a picture of Gavin's daughter's first deer. And that's a really nice first buck for your daughter. So congratulations to her. But, after so many years of doing these YouTube videos, you're actually the first person that has ever asked me what I meant by good hunting at the end of my videos. I wish I could tell you that good hunting had some type of deep, intense meaning to it, but it really doesn't. The meaning is actually simple and straightforward. It means have a good hunt, or as the Germans might say, Weidmannsheil. But, to go deeper into that, I guess, a good hunt doesn't necessarily mean harvesting an animal to me. To me, the blessing of walking amongst nature and interacting with it, tends to make me whole most of the time. It awakens that primitive gene that lies dormant in all of us and, kind of reminds us where we came from. Of course, when everything in the hunt comes together perfectly and I end up putting some meat in the freezer, that's always a welcome bonus that I'm thankful for. And our next letter is from Mr. Wada in Hawaii. Mr. Wada wrote, I'm 66 years old and have discovered your channel. I live on the island of Molokai in Hawaii and have hunted since the age of 10 or so. There's a genuineness, humility, and experience-based voice that resonates from your channel. Perhaps there are others on the web that are like this, but in my opinion, no one else puts the package together more clearly and from the heart than you do. Your videos are well thought out and kind of have a distinct clarity and neatness to them. You also flow well and foster a connection with your audience by being you. Your videos have opened my eyes and reminded me that there are always things to learn from somebody, no matter how much you may think you already know. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience along with the essence of who you are. It is refreshing and needed. Wow, thank you for the lovely letter and for enjoying my channel. I'm humbled by your viewership, and I hope I'm worthy of your subscription one day as well. And welcome to the Desert Dog family. Your letter reminds me that I haven't eaten delicious Axis deer steaks in a long time, and I believe Axis deer is the best tasting of all the deer species. And what better place to hunt Axis deer than the beautiful state of Hawaii? I travel to Hawaii every year to fish for bonefish, but perhaps a hunting video is in my future as well. I promise I'm only there to enjoy your beautiful island and spend my money. You know, I won't be buying property. I won't be gentrifying the locals or, overstaying my welcome like many California haoles do. Our next letter is from Mark in California. Mark wrote, Desert Dog, it was nice to meet you at the range today. Keep up the exceptional content. Well, Mark spotted me at our local shooting range for the gun club while I was filming a video. And, he let me know that he was a fan of this channel. And we talked while I let the barrel cool between shooting 20-shot groups. And I've honestly never interviewed a fan of my channel before. So, I had a short interview with Mark. Here it is. And I'm over here at the local range, and I ran into a fan of Desert Dog Outdoors. This is Mark. How you doing today, Mark?
Good. How are you?
Good. And what are you shooting today, Mark?
I'm shooting a Ruger American Gen 2. I just got a couple months ago. It's chambered in 5.56 223. It's kind of my main rifle right now.
One of my favorite cartridges right there, the 223 Remington. Love it.
The Vortex Diamondback Tactical.
Nice.
So relatively inexpensive stuff.
And are you a beginning shooter?
I've been shooting about a year, but mostly you started with handguns.
Yep.
Now I'm trying to start in rifles.
This is a nice setup you got here. I like that you went right into a good solid front rest with a rabbit ear rear bag. A lot of people just come to the range and try to shoot off 2x4s or sandbags or something, and that's a really good setup. And
yeah, I used to use these bags, and now I figured out the rest is much better. And I kind of took your advice in some of your videos that you
Nice. Nice. I'm glad I could help.
Yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure meeting you, Mark, and try to put you on the next Hunt Camp Mail.
All right, thank you.
And our next letter is from Brian. Brian wrote, what's your experience or thoughts on universal seating dies? I don't think anybody's ever asked me this in the history of Hunt Camp Mail, but, I assume with this question, you're talking about the Frankfurt dies. And, I think they make ammo just as good as your, kind of run-of-the-mill RCBS or Hornady dies. But be mindful that you will have a lot more run out using those dies versus using a top-tier cartridge-specific die. They're perfectly fine for hunting ammunition, in my opinion. And, they can save a new reloader some cash. And our next letter is from Andrew from Tucson, Arizona. Andrew wrote, I have an opportunity to do some feral pig hunting in California on a couple of private ranches. I imagine the terrain will be fairly open. This is not a paid-for hunt. We're there to clean out as many as we can. What cartridge would be your number one choice for taking out some hogs and what I hope will be moderate volume shooting? Thanks for the videos over the years. As an adult onset hunter, I've had to do a lot of my own research without a mentor, and you've been a big part of that. Well, thank you very much for the kind compliments. Just to let you know, give you a little bit of rundown on pig hunting here in California. 99.99% of pigs in California are on private property. I do every year or two shoot a pig on public property, but they're really hard to find. We pretty much wiped them all out on public property, and some of the ranchers and farmers here might act like they're pests, but they actually try to keep them on their land so they could sell pig hunts. And pig hunts here are outrageous. A rancher will charge about anywhere from $700 to $1,000 for one nasty pig on his property. And I know that sounds kind of weird to somebody in Texas that they do that, but that's the reality of pig hunting here. Pig hunting in California is not like hunting in Texas, so get that out of your head right away. They're just not as numerous or easy to get here as you might think. And hunting pigs at night here is strictly forbidden as well. Pigs are actually managed as game animals in California, not pests. And you have to buy a pig tag to hunt them. And the pigs here aren't only in open areas. As a matter of fact, they're rarely out in open areas. Most of them are in the oak woodlands on the Central Coast area or in our other foothill areas throughout the state. So don't expect some type of Texas style pig shoot. You have to actually hunt the pigs over here. And depending on the area that you're in, they're often harder to hunt than deer, to tell you the truth. You also can't hunt them at night, like I said before. And if it's warm here, they're only going to really come out at night. And this is how I went out pig hunting last month, and this is how hot it was here. My favorite pig cartridge is undoubtedly the 30-06, and that's what my wife and I usually grab when we want to put some pork in the freezer. Also be mindful that you'll have to use copper bullets only in California, so you need to get that sorted out before you come here. Just remember, it's not as easy as you think it's going to be. The terrain is usually foothill terrain. That's very hilly. There's thick to moderate oak woodlands you'll be hunting in. You can't hunt at night. You can't use bait. Food plots are illegal. So, I mean, you need to maybe lower your expectations a little bit for your hunt. Our next letter is from Shelby in Texas. Shelby wrote, "Did you see the recent video where Eric Cortina does a 500-yard ethical hunting challenge? He brought in a group of experienced guys with very expensive rifles and long-range shooting experience. And even they couldn't make a 500-yard cold bore shot inside a 6-inch circle in field conditions. For many years, you and Randy Selby were the only ones calling hunters unethical who shot at animals from long distance. Now, the people who mocked you seem to be coming to grips with reality. After watching the backfire video and several actual hunting guides try this challenge, I hope people stop hunting at long distances. Here's a link to that video." Well, Shelby, I watched the link to the video that you sent me, and man, there was a lot of expensive rigs in that lineup. The very last shooter in that challenge did make the shot, but he also admitted that the only reason he made that shot was because he observed the wind calls of the shooters that shot before him, which in my mind isn't really legitimate because, in field conditions, you're not watching a bunch of other shooters shoot before you and make wind calls. But, in my mind, that was a very good test that Eric Cortina put on because, guys like that are always going for the high shoulder shot or the scapula when they're hunting. And you need to shoot about 1 MOA at that distance for a good hit on the scapula. The narrative of long distance hunting is completely unraveling right now. At least that's what it seems like to me. And thanks to YouTube, it's become obvious that these people can't do what they claim to be capable of in real world hunting situations. I've known the truth for a great many years, and my voice has always been drowned out by corporate shills and mall ninjas that have driven our culture for the last decade and a half. Their narrative seems to be burning down right now, and I'll gladly be there to piss on the ashes. Our next letter is from Josh in Japan. Josh wrote, "I've been watching your videos for a while, and I enjoy them. I'm writing to you because you're one of the few people on the internet whose opinion I respect. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on the new Montana Rifle 2022 action rifles. I remember hearing mixed things about their actions a couple of decades ago, but I understand this is a completely new design. I've been in Japan for the past few years, and I will likely remain in Japan for the foreseeable future. So I scratch the hunting and shooting itch vicariously through you." Well, hello, Josh in Japan. And I think that the new 2022 Montana Action is actually fantastic. They're now fully machined instead of cast like they used to be. And I even like the integral scope mounts on it. And of course, it still retains all the features of the classic Model 70 rifle, which is a good thing in my opinion. Honestly, an off-the-shelf Model 70 was better than those old Model 99 actions, but I actually think that the new 2022 actions are fantastic. I'm hoping that they also improved barrel quality, which was an intermittent issue with the old Montana rifles. But, those new rifles look good to me. And our next letter is from Dan in New Mexico. Dan wrote, I was wondering if you or anyone you know have tried those primers from White River. They seem to be more available than CCI large rifle primers, and they are made in the USA. I haven't used them personally, but I do have a friend that bought a box of the large rifle primers, and he said that the primers were very oversized, and they had to seat them with a lot of force. He said all of them functioned properly, but I just remember him telling me that he had to seat them with a lot of force. But I also remember that everyone was mad at White River earlier this year. They canceled all of their U.S. orders. People who had pre-ordered them, merchants here in the United States, they basically canceled out all their U.S. orders when they found out that they can charge more than double on the international market. So all of their primers went to New Zealand, Australia, and Asia, where they doubled or tripled the price. So even though they may make good primers, a lot of people just don't want to do business with that company. Our next letter is from fan favorite Hagen in Germany. Hagen wrote, how do you like Melvin Forbes ultralight arms rifles? And do you think Wilson Combat's reintroduction lives up to the original? I think you're not the biggest fan of light mountain rifles, but these ones seem to be well thought out and weren't chambered for lame Magnum cartridges. Well, that's a good question, Hagen. And you know me well. I'm definitely not a fan of ultralight hunting rifles, but I'll also admit that Wilson Combat did a good job with this one. They actually chamber it in proven mild hunting cartridges like the 243, the 6.5 Creedmoor, and the 7mm 08. They went with a stock with classic lines on it, which makes it really fast pointing to the shoulder. And, it comes with a bulletproof, reliable hinged full floor plate rather than detachable magazines, which I also think is a plus. And they resisted the urge to add a stupid carbon fiber barrel to it and, put some lame muzzle brake on the end of it like most mountain rifles get. Most firearm manufacturers these days just aren't capable of exercising enough discipline when designing and marketing an ultralight rifle. Most ultralight mountain rifles in existence today sit in safes because they're just horrible to shoot. So I'll give credit where credit is due and admit that Wilson Combat did a good job with their version of that rifle. And our next letter is from David in California. David wrote, American Hunter magazine has an advertisement for Federal showing expansion at 997 yards on game. Come on now. And here's a pic of that advertisement. In my opinion, the ammo industry, including Federal, has no soul. Our next letter is from Chris in South Africa. Chris wrote, we have a well-loved brand of monolithic down here called Peregrine. I'm currently using their 167 grain Plainsmaster VLR4 in my 30-06. We've got a nice hand load going with H4350 and are getting around 2850 feet per second out of the 24-inch barrel with great groups. I was wondering if you get Peregrines over there and if you've ever tried them. On face value, it seems that their quoted BC numbers are similar or better to their LRX counterparts. They also claim good expansion at relatively low velocities, but I'm not sure about this claim, physics being what it is. Well, thank you for the letter from South Africa, Chris. I know all about Peregrine bullets, and they have an excellent reputation in Africa and everywhere else. They started importing those bullets into the U.S. back in, I think, like 2017, and I bought a few boxes of them in 30 caliber. And, you know, I kind of thought they were on par with Barnes bullets, to tell you the truth, but they were about 50% more expensive than Barnes bullets. You know, then we couldn't get them at all in the U.S. for several years, and supply dried up fast. And now they have one exclusive distributor in the United States. I forgot the name of the outfit, but there's only one distributor of those bullets here. And they want over $70 for a box of 50-30 caliber bullets. I mean, that's just insane. So for Americans, there's no real value to buying Peregrine bullets, you know, even though they make great bullets. You know, when I pick a bullet to use, I want to use it for many years, that same type of bullet, without doing, you know, further in-depth load development. So for the exception of maybe Swift A-frames, bullets that have availability issues are hard for me to like. And our next letter is from Samuel from Provo, Utah. Samuel wrote, I watched your video named Is Load Development Real? And found it to be one of your most thought-provoking lessons to date. Even though the topic went over most people's heads, I watched it several times and absorbed every detail. I don't know if you thought of this or not, but I noticed a variable between your node and anti-node that might account for the much better SDs with your node load. You posted a video earlier this year named Selecting a Powder. In that video, you talked about the importance of case fill and how a case full of powder does better than an incomplete case fill. Maybe the fact that your node load had a full grain more powder than your anti-node made the node better because you had better case fill. I'm not using your own logic against you. I'm just curious if you considered this variable. You know, Samuel, this letter blew my mind, and you know, there's a great deal of validity to what Samuel states here. I really didn't consider that, you know, until you pointed it out in this letter. And now you kind of have me second guessing my results. And I'll just say, Samuel, you possess above average powers of observation. Heck, you know what? I might even give myself the bullshit button. Bullshit! 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 But you're exactly right. Load density plays a big role in load performance, especially when it comes to consistency, which is kind of what SDs represent. My node load had better load density than my anti-node, so that could theoretically influence the results. You know, how much one grain really matters, I really don't know, but it theoretically could have. But even if you go with that theory, the Hornady experts would be wrong because they state that reduced loads are actually more consistent and precise than cases full of powder. You know, all I could say is that load density is important enough that match cartridges are being developed specifically around a particular powder. You know, the 6GT, for instance, it was designed to have 100% load density with Varget. And our next letter is from Max in Colorado. Max wrote, so I'm stupid and bored enough to watch the Hornady podcast, but at least I'm smart enough not to watch the Vortex podcast. I watched the episode where they first stated that nodes are fake and watched throughout the following year while they contradicted themselves and talk about barrel harmonics and fine-tuning loads. These guys are not expert shooters and pretty much just do recreational PRS shoots from time to time. Please take what they say with a grain of salt. Like most people on the net, they are not real experts. They are just Hornady employees disguised as ballisticians doing marketing. When Eric Cortina interviewed the so-called Hornady engineer, he backtracked on most of what he initially said when Eric called him out. Always believe the target. Well, I'm not going to get into it as deep as you did, Max, but I think in the video I think I was actually very fair, and I approached it with an open mind, in my opinion. If I could just pick one powder and a bullet and the velocity I want to shoot and do 20 round groups and be done with load development, I would do that. I would want that. I want nodeless load development because it would save me a lot of time and components. But there's a problem here with everyone in this conversation, especially when it comes to groups and consistency here. Everyone is ignoring the single biggest factor with rifle precision, and that's barrel quality. Great top tier barrels shoot great with almost anything you put in them. And that's a fact that just no one ever seems to mention. If an inexperienced shooter gets a job as an engineer for Hornady and fires a quality cut rifle barrel out of a test jig, it's easy to say that nodes don't exist because those groups are within his expectations. But I bet those groups don't meet Eric Cortina's expectations. When you say believe the target, I always ask whose target? A Hornady engineer looking at mean radius, or is it a competition shooter that considers any flyer to be unacceptable? Targets are really just a matter of perspective. And our next letter is from Vincent from Ventura, California. Vincent wrote, I just spent the last 2 weekends hunting the A-zone general deer season. The 100-degree heat wasn't the only danger. I saw hunters in the campground walking around pointing muzzles at each other. Many of them had a finger on the trigger. On our last morning, we woke up at 5 a.m. and heard a gunshot in the campground. It turned out to be a kid who had a negligent discharge while loading his gun. Yes, he was loading it in the campground before they got in the truck. I know you are a big freedom and Constitution supporter, but what are the limits when so many stupid people are allowed to handle firearms? Yeah, Vincent, this question is an onion that just has so many endless layers to peel back. I definitely am a huge supporter of absolute freedom and limited government regulation. But if I'm being intellectually honest here, it's not always easy to have that stance. Back when I was training people to use firearms, I saw a lot of disturbing things, but at the very least, those people were actively enrolling themselves in training so they could get better. And, I respect that. And there's room for error and room to grow in that. But when I would fill in as a range officer from time to time at the local range, I saw that about 50% of the people visiting the public range were pretty dangerous with firearms. I quickly realized that public shooting ranges are one of the most dangerous places you could be. But running this channel, I see some of the comments and emails that I get regularly, and I really start to question whether my stance against mandatory training is correct or not. I'm honestly conflicted on the subject. And our next letter is from Mike in Las Vegas, Nevada. Mike wrote, I watched your reloading month videos and it got me interested in the A&D scale with the V4 trickler. I've been using a CHARGEMASTER for 10 years and it has done a great job. Is the single kernel accuracy of the A&D scale worth all the money? Well, it depends. I mean, honestly, I don't think one single kernel of weight accuracy really means anything to a target. The RCBS CHARGEMASTER was the gold standard for a long time for an auto powder trickler. But the problem with it was always scale drift. And, you could get the cleanest power supply you could possibly get, and you can control static electricity 100%, and the scale would still drift as you load. I don't know if you remember on my old YouTube channel, I showed that my 100% static-free CHARGEMASTER was drifting about 3 to 4 tenths of a grain about every 20 to 25 charges. And, and if you believe in nodes, that's enough to put you out of a node. The professionals have always known this when they used the CHARGEMASTER back in the day, and they'd compensate by recalibrating the machine, after so many charges, or, even verify on another scale as they go and recalibrate as needed. But, to be fair about this, the Hornady, Frankfurt, and Lyman auto tricklers have the same problem, but often worse than the CHARGEMASTER does. The only way to get extreme precision without drift on a scale is to use a high-quality lab-grade scale, which is extremely expensive, and most people don't want to pay over $1,000 for a system like that. In addition to the precision and lack of drift that you get with the A&D scale, that trickling system also lets you fine-tune and control your charge rate so you could do a lot of load development faster. And our next letter is from Daryl from Glendale, Arizona. Daryl wrote, I recently bought a Savage Axis 2, and this thing is a piece of shit. It's not smooth at all, and it is already getting rust on it, and it shoots all ammunition very poorly. Now, I have to send it back because the extractor broke. I learned a hard lesson. You get what you pay for. Well, Daryl, I'd say that you get what you pay for most of the time. But this isn't always the case in the firearms world, as many of us know. When you go to a Shields and you see all those pretty Christensen arms rifles and that really fancy glass display case, be mindful that you're spending thousands of dollars on a piece of crap. Many of my friends bought the SIG Cross when they first came out, which most of those turned out to be pieces of crap. I myself have spent big money on a Kimber 1911 and Kimber bolt-action rifles, and most of those had issues. So you don't always get what you pay for in the firearms world. What you need to do is do a lot of research before buying a gun. Don't listen to influencers who accept free guns for review. I get offered free stuff to do good reviews on all the time, and I turn all of those offers down. Ironically, at the same time I get those offers to review products, I see all the other influencers doing reviews on them. So I know they have the same deal and they're accepting them for reviews. But my advice to you is start researching a rifle by trying to find out something bad about this rifle, not good. And this will usually lead you down a path to the truth. And our next letter is from Charlie from Spokane, Washington. Charlie wrote, I am what you would call a hippie hunter. Unfortunately, all of my hippie friends are anti-hunters. When I try to justify why I hunt, I bring up the conservation benefits of hunting, and I find myself in the killing for conservation dilemma of circular reasoning. When people ask me why I hunt, I don't have an answer that I can put into words that sounds logical. Conservation and eating deer meat can't be the only arguments for hunting, but that seems to be the only argument that famous hunters can give. How would you answer this question? And I'm assuming the question is, why do we hunt? But I agree with your analysis in this. Constantly regurgitating that hunting is conservation doesn't really address why we hunt. Anytime I see Boddington or Shockey or a guy like Newberg address hunting, they always try to frame it with the typical conservation talking points. Of course, Ranella would be the exception to that. But I did a video in the past called Hunting Ethics, probably a few years ago, that got almost no views, where I answered deep questions like this. And here's my answer in that video to the question of why do we hunt?
In order for life to continue, living things must die and be consumed. But as human beings capable of complex thought and empathy, we can't take killing lightly. Taking a life is a serious thing, and denying yourself an emotional attachment to your prey is denying your own humanity. Through tradition and ethics, we as hunters police our own behavior for the betterment of both people and animals. Tradition and ethics brings meaning to the hunt, so that we're not simply killers on a murderous rampage out in the woods, but an integral part of the natural world itself. Our traditions and ethics keep us grounded in the concept of having the utmost respect for our prey and for the environment that they live in. These acts maintain our emotional, physical, and possibly even spiritual attachment to the animals. Because of this, ethical hunters are the true conservationists of the earth. The hunter respects science and logic over emotion and the status quo. We know that responsible hunting is conservation. The hunter understands that habitat loss is the real enemy of wildlife, and we fight it harder than any other group, in my opinion. But the conservation aspect of hunting is simply what allows us to continue hunting. It's not the reason that we hunt in the first place. We hunt because it's our fundamental connection with nature. And we take pleasure in rekindling our relationship with nature. Hunting also stokes our sense of self-reliance and accomplishment. Hunting gives us an intimate relationship with our food that you're not going to get at the grocery store. And to many of us, hunting is just in our soul.
And that begs the question that any ignorant social media warrior will ask. And that's, why do we still hunt when we don't need to? Well, it's because hunting gives us an honest relationship with nature. It not only equates to knowing your food, it also reinforces the truth of life and death itself. The majority of modern humans live behind the mask of city life, where they're insulated from the reality of the natural world. Hunting lets the human temporarily escape our fabricated reality and touch base with who we really are, a self-sufficient predator who has a real place in nature and a responsibility to protect it. Becoming one with the sights and sounds of nature, matching your wits against the instincts of your prey, feeling the excitement of the hunt, experiencing the adrenaline rush at the moment before the kill, and finally, the wave of emotions that overcomes the hunter when the prey is finally down is a profound human experience that's almost impossible to describe. Hunting is in our blood, and it's our biological and ancestral connection to nature. Non-hunters will never experience this and will probably have no understanding of it, and subsequently remain ignorant of its truth. And our last letter for the month is from Mario in Fresno, California. Mario wrote, "The dove opener is almost here, and I think the Central Valley is going to break records for dove numbers. What will you be shooting on September 1st? Oh, I can't wait. Finger be damned, I'm ready. I was initially going to use my Beretta A400 20 gauge, but I won't be able to load and unload in auto right now with my injured hand. So I'll likely be using a 20 gauge over and under this year. And, who knows, depending on how this feels a week from now, I might be shooting that left-handed. Well, that wraps up this episode of Hunt Camp Mail. Here's some memes for the month of August. hey, wake up. You need to pay attention to this. Next month's Hunt Camp Mail is going to be the 50th episode celebration special. That's hard to believe. Next month is going to be my 50th month of Hunt Camp Mail. And I'll only be answering Hunt Camp Mail related questions on the next episode of Hunt Camp Mail. So give me your comments, opinions, concerns, or recommendations on how I can improve Hunt Camp Mail. Also, at the end of that episode, I'll be doing another fan trivia giveaway where I'll give out some awesome swag to my lucky and observant viewers. That episode will air on Thursday, September 26th at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. So make sure you tune in on September 26th at 5 p.m. Los Angeles time. You know, I can't believe that this thing has gone 50 months now. You know, as my viewers know, I almost canceled Hunt Camp Mail several times over the years, you know, and I really only intended to do this for 1 year. But I'm glad I continued doing it. Well, you could reach me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. I can't wait to read your Hunt Camp Mail related questions next month. Thank you for watching, and as always, good hunting.